In the middle of a storm, a container is thrown out of the sky and lands on an island. The next morning, a family of otters go to investigate the strange object and find a robot inside, which activates on its own and introduces itself as ROS 7134. Her program consists of helping human beings in a wide variety of activities, but there are none around. Suddenly, a huge wave approaches the island, forcing ROS up the mountain and into a forest. There, she meets animals of various species and tries to help them, all the while recording everything on her viewfinder camera. However, the animals mistake the intruder for a monster and reject her help, so ROS goes into learning mode in order to understand more about life in the forest. After days of learning, she finally manages to communicate with the animals and promises to be useful to them. However, in response, an elk lashes out at ROS, throwing her far away, but the robot is resilient and soon recovers from the attack. This only makes the animals even more frightened and they flee, with ROS realizing that she will be of no use there. She then goes to the top of the mountain and triggers the call to return to the factory, but before she can, she is struck by lightning and thrown back into the forest. Hours later, her system is rebooted and ROS realizes that she is being dismantled by dozens of raccoons. The robot uses her defense system to drive them off and tries to trigger the callback, but her antenna is stolen by one of them. She chases the raccoon into a cave and retrieves the antenna, only to be met by a huge wild bear. The robot is forced to flee and ends up tripping over a cliff, but luckily, she lands on a ledge where a mother goose and her chicks used to live. Unfortunately, the robot accidentally crushes them all, except for one egg, where she identifies signs of life. ROS then decides to take care of it, until a fox appears and snatches it out of her hands. The robot begins to chase the animal and the two end up on a fallen tree trunk near a waterfall. With nowhere to run, the fox pretends to return the egg, but she swallows it and, with her bionic arm, ROS forces him to throw it out. The fox ends up throwing the egg away and tries to retrieve it, but the creature ends up jumping towards a hedgehog. ROS seizes the chance and takes the egg back, grabs the fox and activates an arm mechanism containing drills. The animal believes that this will be the end of it, but a pair of tweezers emerges from inside its arm and the robot uses them to remove the fox's thorns. The animal doesn't like this at all, but as it can't face the robot, it gives up the egg and flees into the forest. After that, the egg starts to hatch and ROS thinks something is wrong, but a baby goose emerges from inside, mistaking the robot for its mother. His gesture of affection causes an unusual effect on ROS, with several lights covering her body. Despite this, ROS soon returns to her original programming and believes she has accomplished a mission by saving the chick from danger. With that, she triggers the call to return to the factory, but needs to find a higher place where she can get a signal for the antenna. As she walks, the little goose follows her everywhere and, when ROS tries to activate the antenna, it breaks it with its beak. At the same moment, the robot hears the sound of baby possums, along with their mother, and places the bird on top of her. The mother possum, called Pink Tail, becomes afraid of the robot and pretends she is no longer alive, along with her babies. However, ROS just wants to ask for help, because she doesn't know what to do with the baby goose, which follows her everywhere. The possum explains that, when they are born, the babies attach themselves to whoever they meet first and that's why the robot has now become their mother. ROS is confused and says she wasn't programmed for this task, but Pink Tail explains that no mother is ready, but with patience and dedication, everything will work out. She also warns ROS that she needs to teach the chick to fly so that it can migrate soon, otherwise it won't survive the winter. With this new goal, the robot does her best to teach the chick to eat, swim and fly before the fall is over, but her attempts are not very successful. Nearby, the fox observes everything and sees an opportunity to take advantage of the robot. He introduces himself as Fink and promises to teach ROS everything she needs to survive in the forest. The two enter into a partnership and Fink uses ROS to get food, collecting oysters, catching honey and stealing fish from the wild bear. With a full belly, he fulfills his part of the promise and pulls earthworms out of the ground for the chick to eat. Despite this, the fox doesn't believe that the chick will survive for long, as it is a type of goose known as a dwarf. Because of its small stature, it can't fly and therefore won't be able to escape the winter. However, ROS wants to continue with her mission, so Fink tells her to build a shelter in the middle of the forest. Using wood and rock, ROS manages to build a house and, in the meantime, the chick learns to talk and it's time to choose a name for him. Due to her programming, ROS suggests a numerical name, such as 0186. However, Fink explains that this needs to be something more personal, so the robot suggests Brightbill, based on the chick's characteristics. Brightbill likes his new name and, when night comes, he starts to feel sleepy and needs to go to sleep. The fox then suggests telling a story, and tells a tale very similar to the connection between the robot and the little goose. Roz is surprised at the fox for creating a story that talks, above all, about maternal love. Fink tries to disguise it, but he reveals that the lack of this love in his childhood makes him think about it every day. Finally, Roz switches off to recharge her batteries, with Brightbill and Fink falling asleep next to her. The days go by and the chick becomes a young goose, but it still needs to learn to swim and fly. Fink then sets him a test by throwing him off a hill into the lake so that he can practice swimming. With a lot of effort, Brightbill swims until he meets a flock of his own kind and tries to make friends, but everyone already knows that he is a dwarf goose, raised by the forest monster. Because of this, the geese reject him and even start to bother him because of his strange ways. Roz, who was watching the youngster with the camera in his removable hand, sees that Brightbill is in trouble and goes to help him. The presence of the robot drives the gang away, but soon afterwards, a carnivorous fish known as the rock mouth tries to attack Brightbill. Roz goes to the rescue, but her foot gets stuck in the rocks and she is forced to pull it out. The predator gets closer and closer to Brightbill, but at the last second, Roz's hand catches the fish and sends it scurrying away. The young goose is out of danger, but others of his kind show up and warn him that the robot was the one who destroyed his family before he was born. Fink is furious with the birds for saying this and Roz tries to explain herself, but Brightbill just follows them back to the shelter. Once there, the young goose demands to know the truth, so Roz reveals that she accidentally crushed his mother and her nest. Brightbill is furious and accuses the robot of not being able to fit in with the other geese. He goes on to say that Roz isn't his real mother and leaves the shelter, which leaves the robot confused about what she's feeling. Another day passes and Roz returns to the place where she arrived and finds the container, along with robot parts that have also fallen onto the island. She uses the parts to assemble another robot, called a scavenger, and, as soon as she manages to activate it, Roz asks for help with her new task of being a mother. The collector is surprised by this and, on analyzing Roz's programming, realizes that she has outgrown her original role and must be taken back to the factory. She even gives her a new antenna so that she can make the return call, but Roz refuses. Confused about what to do, she goes to the top of the mountain and Fink meets her. The robot believes she must return to the factory, but just then she sees a group of geese flying away from the island, indicating that time is running out for Brightbill to learn to fly. Despite the young goose's harsh words, Roz is willing to help him before it's too late. So, using her ability to learn, the robot studies all the geese's movements and creates a flight path, using rocks, so that Brightbill can train. Seeing the robot's efforts, Paddler the beaver, who is working on digging up the biggest tree in the forest, sets Roz up with a new mechanical leg. Thanks to this, she can run faster and, during training, she gives Brightbill a boost to fly, but he always falls to the ground. Seeing that the only way for the chick to learn is from an experienced bird, Roz and Fink ask for the help of Thunderbolt, an experienced hawk. With his teachings, Brightbill discovers that his short wings are not for straight flights, but for curves and dives. Finally, it's time to put what they've learned into practice and Roz sets up several hoops to serve as obstacles in the training. With the help of Thunderbolt, Brightbill begins to fly in the sky and takes a dive towards the runway, dodging the obstacles and leaving everyone impressed. Roz observes the youngster's training, until the leader of the goose flock, Longneck, appears on the scene. He congratulates the robot on helping the youngster to fly and admits that the others in the flock are jealous of him for being a special goose. However, he needs to master the art of flight in just 1 week, because after that, winter will come and the flock will leave the island. The robot then continues to help with the training, making Brightbill pull loads, resist the wind and feed himself by flying, without ever setting foot on the ground. On the last day before migration, the young goose makes his final test, carrying a stone out to sea and flying back to the runway. With a dive, Brightbill takes off and manages to land perfectly, proving that his training has been completed. Finally, the day of the migration arrives and Roz, Fink and Livebeak go to meet the flock of geese. When he sees the youngster, Longneck is happy with his progress, but warns him that it was all thanks to the dedication of the robot, who gave him a chance to survive in the forest. Upon hearing this, the young goose realizes that he has been unfair to her and, before leaving, he asks if Roz will be in the forest when he returns. Unfortunately, she replies that she won't, as she has already completed her mission and now needs to return to the factory. As a farewell gift, Roz puts him on her shoulder and runs with him, thus giving the young goose the impetus to fly. The robot then runs to the top of the mountain and there, Brightbill gives her a final farewell. Even though she knows what she has to do, Roz remains in front of the mountain for hours and Fink goes to check on her. Now that they've both fulfilled their agreement, they can get on with their lives, but the truth is that neither of them wants to be apart. However, winter has arrived and Fink must hide in his burrow, like the other animals, to survive the season. As for Roz, she declares her mission accomplished and activates the antenna, sending the message back for repairs. The days go by and Brightbill continues flying with the rest of the flock, until a storm forces them to hide inside a factory. While exploring the place, the young goose finds a cornfield being tended by a robot who looks a lot like Roz. He tries to talk to her, but discovers that it's another robot, which identifies Brightbill as an invader and raises the alarm. Within seconds, security robots appear on the plantation and use the laser cannons on their arms to eliminate the gang. In the middle of the confusion, Longneck asks Brightbill to lead the flock to the exit, while he tries to slow down the robots. Then, with the flying skills he has learned, the youngster teaches the other geese how to fly with curves and dives, dodging the robot's shots with ease. The plan works, but one of the machines directs its target at Brightbill and is about to eliminate him. Longneck then stands in front of the robot to stop it from firing and, with the machine confused, it fires anyway, with no idea which target it has hit. At the same time, Roz wakes up inside the shelter, fearing that something bad has happened to the young goose. The robot has given up on the idea of going back to the factory, as she wants to make sure the chick is all right. Shortly afterwards, Fink shows up, happy to see her friend again, but warns her that her shelter has been destroyed by the storm. Not only that, but all the snow has covered the forest, leaving the other animals in danger and, even against Fink's wishes, Roz decides to go out to save them. Together, they start searching throughout the forest and find the animals freezing and in need of shelter. One by one, Roz and Fink take them all to shelter, whether they are carnivorous predators or their prey. After all this effort, only one animal remains to be rescued, the wild bear. Even though she is damaged and her energy is almost depleted, Roz goes to his cave and brings the bear safely to the shelter. But when she gets there, she finds predators and their prey making a mess of things because they don't believe they can live in peace. Roz is too exhausted to control the situation, so Fink roars and tells everyone to listen. He warns them that, even if they don't like each other, they have a chance of surviving the winter if they stay in the shelter. At the same time, the robot, which is about to deactivate, asks for a truce and for no animals to attack each other until the storm has passed. Having his life saved, the bear supports Roz's decision and so all the animals gather in the shelter to keep warm until the end of winter. Several days pass and finally, the storm ends and spring arrives in the forest. Along with it, the flock of geese returns to the island and Roz runs towards them, eager to see Brightbill again. She finally finds him among the group and, unlike before, all the geese congratulate him on having guided them to safety. Fink also appears on the scene and runs to hug the young goose who, unfortunately, brings the news that Longneck has lost his life as a result of being shot by the security robot. Despite this tragedy, the young goose has brought the gang back to the island and says he needs to talk to Roz. However, seeing that the chick is now part of a group with others of his kind, the robot prefers not to interfere and leaves. At dusk, Roz returns to the airstrip and reminisces about the time she spent with her son. Suddenly, a gigantic ship appears in the forest and from inside it, a tentacled machine called Vantra appears. She reveals that Roz came from a ship, but was lost in the hurricane and ended up on the island. Now she has to be taken back to the factory, where she will be repaired and her programming analyzed for future research. Vantra then tells her to get on the ship, but before she does, Fink appears and tells Roz not to go, because Brightbill wants to see her. The robot then goes against her programming and tells Vantra a lie, saying she's going to get apart from the shelter and will be back soon. However, the machine doesn't accept that the robot is disobeying a direct order and sends an army of machines after her. In addition, it fires rockets into the forest to illuminate the place and find its target more easily. Roz and Fink flee with the help of the forest animals, but soon they are all cornered by the army of machines. They order the robot to return to the factory, but Roz refuses, as she is now a wild robot and her home is the forest, together with her friends. The machines don't accept the answer and threaten to shoot them, but a moose makes a surprise attack and pushes it away. A battle breaks out, with the machines trying to capture Roz, but all the animals come together to protect her. Even so, one of the robots captures Roz, only for the possums to appear and tell her to pretend she's been eliminated. Roz obeys, leaving the machine confused, and then Fink destroys it by firing the cannon from the arm of another fallen robot. Afterwards, Roz meets Brightbill again, but Vantra activates the automatic destruction command, causing all the robots to explode. The impact pushes Roz and she is pulled into the ship, which sets off towards the factory. The animals don't know what to do, but Brightbill flies to the ship with his gang to rescue Roz. At the same time, the explosion of the robots has started a fire in the forest and Fink, along with his friends, must stop the fire from spreading. Inside the ship, Vantra begins the process of removing Roz's memories, as the manufacturer wants to study them further. The robot asks to keep at least Brightbill's memory, but the machine refuses and activates the memory extractor. This seems to be the end of Roz, but then Brightbill appears and attacks the ship, along with the other geese. Vantra fights back with her laser cannons, but the young goose dives towards the windshield and manages to break into the ship. He then runs in search of Roz, but finds her sitting in the chair, not showing any reaction. Fearing that she has been deactivated forever, Brightbill approaches her, apologizes for the way he treated her and tells her that he loves her, calling her mother for the first time. Just like the first time they met, Roz's body lights up completely and she is reactivated, with her memories intact. After reuniting, the two set off to escape from the ship, but are stopped by Vantra, who fires a laser cannon at Roz's leg. She warns them that no matter how hard they try to escape, she will come after Roz until she gets her back to the factory. What the villain hadn't counted on was that, during her speech, Roz sent her removable hand to activate the lever, triggering a magnet that begins to attract Vantra and destroys her completely. However, this causes an overload in the ship and it is about to explode, forcing Roz to jump, along with Brightbill. The robot then removes the energy core and places the chick inside her body, using her last strength to protect it from falling. At the same moment, the animals ask for Paddler's help to turn the tree he was digging up towards the river. Together, they push the huge trunk, which falls into the river and spreads all the water through the forest, putting an end to the fire once and for all. Everyone is safe and rushing to see Roz, who has managed to land safely in the river. Despite this, the fire has caused serious damage to the forest, destroyed the shelter, and the robot knows that other machines will soon return to try and take her away. Because of this, she decides to return to the factory, otherwise the whole forest will be in danger. Brightbill and Fink don't want to say goodbye to the robot, but she promises that she will return one day. So she activates her antenna and is taken away by the ship, thus protecting the home and family she created on the island. Months passed and the shelter was rebuilt, now serving as a place for everyone to protect themselves during the winter. At night, Fink does what he does best and tells the youngsters a story about a brave robot who saved the forest. In the end, she had to say goodbye, but everyone hopes that she will return one day. Meanwhile, the flock of geese migrates again and they pass the factory where several robot units are working in the cornfield. Among them is Roz, who has had her memories removed and is continuing with her programming, until Brightbill appears and tries to get close to her. He fears that Roz won't be able to recognize him, but not even the erased memories can break the bond between them. The robot then remembers her babies and cuddles him, promising that she will return to the forest soon. So what did you think of this movie? Leave it in the comments below. And if you liked the video, like and subscribe for more movie recaps. See you next time.